In 100 ages of the gods, I could not tell thee of the glories of the Himalaya. Thus does tradition call down to us from the Purans. This is a spectacle of awesome dimensions. Ranges upon ranges, tiers of rock, sharp sky piercing peaks and canyons, deep beyond measure. This is the great Himalaya. How did this all come about? Whence rose these citadels of ice? How did this 3,000-kilometer long mountain range come into existence? For the Himalaya are not just the most impressive of all mountain chains, but also the youngest.
You have to stretch your imagination a bit to comprehend the cataclysmic events that led to the formation of the Himalayan ranges. According to the most accepted geological theories,
1 billion years ago, India was a giant island landmass gradually moving north. Then some 60 million years ago, it actually collided with the Eurasian continent. And the result of this unimaginable cataclysm was the birth of the Himalayas. The line along which the two continents were joined is known appropriately as the Indus-Yarlung Suture Zone, marked by the courses of these two greatest rivers of Mount Kailash. After 60 million years, India and the Asian continent became closely welded along this line, and yet the northward movement of India still continued, but at a slower pace of just 2 to 3 centimeters a year.
and what birth pangs! As a result of the collision itself and the related contraction of the Tethyan Ocean, all the rocks of this area, from the mountains of then northern India to the oceanic crust and the deep sea sediments of the Jurassic and Cretaceous ages, joined in the formation of the Himalaya.
This then is the result of those ancient events. Each layer of eroded rock tells the story of the play of millions of years of brute force by nature.
The Himalaya, as we see it today, went through some distinct epochs of uplift. First came the Trans-Himalaya. South of this is the high Himalayan region, where the range reaches its highest points. Here we find old crystalline rock, the oldest core material in the entire Himalaya, almost 2 billion years old, the bottom layers of the compacted Tethyan sediments. This is known as the main central crust.
As the Himalaya rose, the forces of erosion kept pace, leading to the formation of a lower contiguous range of hills known as the Shivaliks. Formed of erosion material from the still rising Himalayan range, their sediments reflect the history of the upthrust of the Himalayan range. Numerous fossil finds allow us to accurately date the Shivaliks and also provide evidence as to the relative youth of the Himalaya.
In the second phase of upheaval, further uplift of the central axis took place. It was now that the great peaks of the Garhwal Himalaya, such as Nanda Devi, achieved their present eminences. In this period, intrusions of young granites, known as leucogranites because of their whitish color, took place in the highest peaks, such as the Bhagirathi sisters and Shivling.
The last upthrust affected not just the Himalayas and the Trans-Himalayas and the Karakoram, but also the whole of the Tibetan region. Today, this area of some 2.5 million square kilometers is the highest landmass on Earth. For in the last 1 million years, it has risen some 5,000 meters. And today, this process of its rising at just 4 to 5 millimeters a year is the process which still continues.
Very little is known about the start, duration, and extent of the ice ages in the Himalaya. Geologists have, however, determined that the last but one was the most severe of the ice ages. The period after this major ice age saw a marked retreat of the glaciers, and this was also the period that most Himalayan lakes came into being amidst the ice-polished rock landscape. The Pangong and Chandratal are classic examples of such glacial remnants. Large lakes were also formed as rising rivers were blocked by the emergent ranges. As the rising Pir Panjal blocked the Jhelum, it turned what we know as the Vale of Kashmir into a lake. This primeval lake, called the Kareva, drained, and from its sediments, pieces of primitive tools have been recovered, are only evidence of a pre-Ice Age culture in the Himalaya.
Like the prehistoric lake of Kashmir, the Kareva, there once stood a lake here near the monastery of Lamayuru. It drained out some 30,000 years ago due to certain fluvial and tectonic forces, leaving behind these very clearly visible strand lines where the lake water level once stood.
All the major rivers of the Himalaya have their source in the holy Kailash region. The Indus to the north, the Yarlung Brahmaputra in the east, the Satluj in the west, and the Ganga and Karnali streams to the south and southwest. This amazing situation, making Mount Kailash the literal linchpin of the Himalaya, is the result of a 30 million year old upthrust of the Kailash range at a time when the Himalaya were in the slow initial phase of their formation. Two of these great rivers, the Indus and the Yarlung Brahmaputra, were forced to flow along the lines of the suture zone in an east-west direction, only penetrating the range at its eastern and western extremities. To further confound matters, this penetration takes place at points of highest uplift, Nanga Parbat in the west and Namcha Barwa in the east. Here in the east, the Yarlung Sangpo parallels the Himalaya till it comes to the Great Egzil Bend at Namcha Barwa. Then, cutting one of the deepest gorges on earth, 3 times as deep as the Grand Canyon, it enters the plains of Assam. The cutting action of the other rivers kept pace with the rising Himalaya, and they come right through the range at some of the highest points. The sources of all major Himalayan rivers lie, therefore, on the north side of the Great Range, and besides the Kailash group, include most larger Himalayan rivers. These rivers are the principal architects of the Himalayan landscape, and each river system has created its own unique geomorphology. The Indus and its tributaries, like the Zanskar and the Suru in the Trans-Himalaya, Its major Himalayan tributaries, which are river systems in their own right: the Chenab, Ravi, Beas, and the Satluj. Further east, the Garhwal Himalaya is the domain of the Ganga and its feeder streams, the Teesta drains the Sikkimese Himalaya. Beyond, in Arunachal, is the true law catchment of the great Brahmaputra river system. The gradual rise of the Himalaya took place in a series of long curvilinear parallel folds, and in this stupendous upthrust of the Earth's crust was created a mountain range that contains all the world's mountains over 7,000 meters in height and constitutes the line of demarcation between two of the world's great faunal realms, the Oriental to the south and the Palearctic to the north. Here we find compressed into a few tens of kilometers the most abrupt environmental changes in the terrestrial world. Although we tend to talk of the Himalaya as a monolith, the fact remains that in their 3,000 kilometer length, they present endless variation in terms of climate, geomorphology, flora and fauna. From the tropical jungles of Arunachal to the cold desert of the Nubra, primulas and rare orchids to the fascinating edelweiss, frozen waterfalls and verdant forest, bare rock and glacial wastes, the Himalaya have it all. Geographically, the range has been traditionally divided into the Punjab Himalaya, consisting of the catchment basins of the Indus, Jhelum, Chenab, Ravi, Beas and Satluj. The Garhwal Himalaya, consisting of the catchment basins of the Yamuna and the Ganga. The Kumaon Himalaya, the Nepal Himalaya, Sikkim, the basin of the Teesta, and the Eastern Himalaya, the Brahmaputra and its left bank tributaries. Broadly, they are classified into Western, Central and Eastern Himalaya. The Western Himalaya, from Himachal Pradesh onwards, has a much greater depth or width than the Eastern Himalaya. A transverse section drawn from the plains of Punjab through Kashmir onto the Karakoram is 3 times longer than anywhere in the Eastern Himalaya. The Eastern Himalaya is also climatically very different. High rainfall and gentler conditions make the Eastern Himalaya a recognized haven for biodiversity.